Shana Tova to everybody. Shana Tova Mituka. A sweet and happy new year. I want to also, I didn't mention his name earlier, but it was right before he got here. I want to recognize my friend Ron Galperin, who is LA City Controller, who is spending the holiday with us. We're so glad. Please give our beloved greetings to everybody at Temple Kiva and Rabbi Shapiro, my good friend. We're honored that you're with us. And also want to welcome Robert Oliver, who's a candidate for West Hollywood City Council, who's with us as well this morning. Shana Tova to you. And again, Rick, we're really honored to have you here. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for being here. Well, on the screen, as Carrie will notice, who's a member of the Board of Governors, that is a picture of Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion at 1 West 4th Street at Broadway in New York City, our rabbinic seminary in New York. As the days for my ordination as a rabbi in 1988 neared, my rabbinic class met with a local rabbi who had been our class's practical rabbinics and homiletics teacher. Homiletics is a fancy word for sermons. He was one of the very, very best, and he shared best practices with us about how to do a wedding, and how to do b'nai and mitzvah, and how to do funerals and baby namings. He shared a lot of materials with us and helped us imagine what our future rabbinates would look like. He also taught us the art of sermon writing. Rabbi Jerome Molino, who you see here, was the rabbi of Danbury, Connecticut's United Jewish Congregation. He was also a national leader and served, as I would come to do, as the president of the Central Conference of American Rabbis. Now, at the time, in the spring of 1988, all of my classmates in the weeks prior to our ordination in May had already been offered all of their first positions. I had not. At the time of my ordination, I still didn't have a job. No one would hire me. Why, you ask? I was top of my class. My Hebrew was pretty good. I could sing and play guitar, always a valuable skill in a rabbi. But it was an open secret that I was a lesbian. And at the time, in 1988, you could still not be ordained as a rabbi or cantor in those years as an openly LGBTQ person. And in 1988, no one would risk hiring a gay or lesbian person. We didn't call ourselves queer in 1988. That was a negative thing. So while I had numerous interviews, both in the pulpit and in Hillel work, and had what we call callbacks, when congregations are starting to get really serious about offering you a position, on placement match day, the calls I received sounded like this: Denise, we really loved having you with us. We felt you were actually a great match, but we can't offer you a job at this time. So in the days before my ordination in May of '88, I didn't yet know what the future would hold for me professionally. It would take another 6 weeks after ordination until the job at Beth Chaim Chadashim would be offered to me, since they had an opening and I was returning to Southern California. I had been an intern there during rabbinic school with Rabbi Janet Martyr. You see, I'm what they call an accidental activist. Many of you know the rest of the story. I won't bore you with that this morning. But what my teacher, Rabbi Molino, shared with me and my class in those spring days of 1988 has remained with me all of these years. He said to us, each rabbi has only 7 sermons inside of them. Every sermon you will give is but a variation on one of those 7 themes. Most of us just kind of laughed at his words. 7 sermons? We're going to give hundreds of sermons in our career. And indeed, I've given hundreds, maybe thousands of sermons, often 2 or more on a Shabbat, along with Divrei Torah, invocations, benedictions, speeches, classes, impromptu teachings in the middle of services. They're way too numerous to count. But now in this last year of my active rabbinate, this last High Holy Days before you as your rabbi, I have been thinking a lot about Rabbi Molino's words. And I think his words were spot on. Inside of each rabbi really is 7 basic sermons. The rest have all been a variation on one of those themes. So during this High Holy Days, I want to make explicit what my teacher so long ago said to us. This year, I'm going to share with you my 7 basics teachings so you don't forget them. Now, don't worry, we're not going to sit here for hours and hours and hours. But over the course of the rest of the High Holy Days, this morning, tomorrow morning, if you dare come and hear a sermon, Kol Nidre and Yom Kippur Day, I want to leave you with what I believe are some of my most important teachings so that you'll carry forward those messages with you into the new year. So here's the first. Our theme this year is Kadima, forward. And that is a message of hope, of resilience, of aspiration. It's meant to help us and inspire us to forge on as a community of Kol Ami, no matter what comes. We chose Kadima to launch ourselves and our souls into 5783. You see, it's meant to offer us a direction that even as we examine our words and our behaviors, our attitudes over the last year, and engage in this process of teshuvah, of repentance, that we don't linger in the past, but instead we look towards the future and to the many possibilities that lay before us in this sweet new year. Kadima, forward. Move forward, not backward. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, even when you have been laid low. Lift your head high and march forward. And pick up your neighbor and bring them along because, and here's another one of the 7, Ahavta re'echa kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Kadima, forward, is actually a religious statement, a spiritual statement. It's an attitude that my sins, my transgressions, the world were not going to hold me down, and that I will put my faith in the future and my hope in the community to hold me up when I feel like I just can't anymore. And together, a community faces the future. Kadima, forward. See, I think of the children of Israel on their journey in the desert for 40 long years. They were told of a promised land. They were brought out of Egypt and slavery, and they crossed the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, despite their fear of the water in front of them and the Egyptian army behind them. Our midrashim, our stories of our rabbis, captures the idea of moving ahead despite whatever is unknown. And God told Moshe, lift up your staff over the sea and divide it. And Moshe ordered the sea to divide, but the stubborn sea refused. Why should I obey you? Said the sea. You are but a human born of a woman. And beside, I, the waters of the ocean, are 3 days older than you. The oceans and the seas were established on the 3rd day of creation, and you, human, were only created on the 6th day. There is a pecking order after all. Moshe repeated this conversation to God and began to pray for help. Now is not the time for prayer, said the Almighty. Lift up your rod. Immediately Moses picked up his staff, which he had found in his father-in-law's garden, in Jethro's garden, and held it out over the sea. The sea, however, remained very obstinate, and Moshe pleaded again with God that God had commanded the sea to divide, but the sea still refused. And then Nachshon ben Aminadav began to walk into the water, and still the water did not split. And Nachshon walked deeper and deeper, all the while proclaiming his faith, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you among the gods that are worshipped? Nachshon recited. Up to his ankles he marched forward, to his knees, and still the waters did not part until the waters reached his very mouth. And as he was choking on the waters, that's when the sea began to split by God's command. And at that very same time, a miracle occurred throughout the entire world, taught our rabbis. All the water in the wells and the caves and rivers, and even in glasses, also divided and remained so until Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, marched forward kadima through the sea. You see, this story is far more than just a tale of national salvation. It is a core of this idea to march forward with faith and hope that rescue will come. And it took not just God performing this miracle, and this is where we all kind of, I think, make the mistake. Note that Moses and Nachshon ben Aminadav both had to act. Human agency played an important role in the rescue. To move forward with faith and hope requires not just a God to listen to our prayer and God to act, but for each one of us to act. Here at the beginning of the new year, when our wounds of the last year are all so very fresh, fresh in our minds, maybe fresh in our bodies, our prayer is to move forward, to be resilient, to forge ahead, for each of us to act for a bright future. And that's not so easy. The last few years have certainly changed our worlds. The pandemic has made life so difficult for so many. You know, for some of you, you say, oh yeah, we're back, no more mask order, life has returned without much of a change. But the truth is, you are different. Our society is still reeling from these 2.5 years. And the effects of these changes in how we work and how we socialize, how we do things are going to be long-lasting. There is no going back to the way it was. There is only one thing, kadima, moving forward. Another midrash of our rabbis teaches the following about Nachshon, who jumped into the Red Sea. The Talmud teaches us that Nachshon went into the sea immediately followed by his whole tribe. He was from the tribe of Judah, which is why, according to our teachers, it would be the tribe of Judah where all the kings would sit, and they would govern all of Israel because of his very courage at that moment. But the Talmud also explicates Nachshon's prayer at that moment, which comes from the book of Psalms. Save me, God, for the waters are come in even unto my soul. I am sunk deep in the mire, where there is no standing. Let not the waters flood overwhelm me, and neither let the deep swallow me. You see, Nachshon's prayer gave actual voice to his own fears, that he would drown in the water, that he would be completely overwhelmed by it. And yet, by giving voice to his innermost fears, it gave him the courage to march forward, kadima. So on this Rosh Hashana, we have work to do, my friends, as individuals and as a community, to give voice to our fears, to give voice to our worries, to put them in our prayers for healing, to heal us and cleanse us, to renew us and to shape us, to uplift us, to change us, to forgive us, and help us have the courage to march into the new year kadima, forward, as Nachshon did. to pray for the courage to act, the courage to make a miracle happen, the courage to take risks for our tribe, the courage to believe in a higher power, even when the world around you and everyone tries to tell you there's no such thing or even ridicule your faith. But you see, you have to be in touch enough with yourself and your ideas and your emotions. Brene Brown, social worker and best-selling author, says it this way: resilience is more available to people who are curious about their own line of thinking and behaving. According to Brown, to become resilient, you need these 4 things. 1, develop hope. 2, use critical awareness to combat societal pressures. 3, refuse to numb your negative emotions. And 4, embrace spirituality. She could be Jewish. Because that's what our tradition actually teaches. Hope in the future. There is a promised land ahead. Combat idol worshipers. Be honest with yourself and others and engage in the soul's accounting, cheshbon hanefesh, and make teshuvah. And finally, practice being Jewish. Live Jewishly with intention and mindfulness in all you do. Jewish ethical behavior in your transactions, responsibility and accountability to your community, to yourself. Celebrate the Jewish holy days, holidays, and yes, support the synagogue to see your community share in these values. These are the Jewish building blocks that for centuries have held our people together and enable us, despite the horrors, the traumas, the setbacks that have befallen our people, to continue to march forward, Kadima. My friends, this has also been a core message of my 7 sermons throughout the years. Live a more Jewish life. Act Jewishly. These high holy days of 5783, you all know what you should do. You all know who you have to ask forgiveness from. You all know who you criticized unfairly or gossiped about. You know who you cheated in a relationship with or on business. You each know who you've said unkind things about. I'm not trying to look at anybody in specific here. But we have to ask this morning, will you march forward and repair those relationships? Will you move forward into the year with a clean slate and a clean heart? Will you help yourself to move forward to a cleansing moment of purity and clarity? And will you really commit to this new year, Kadima, to move forward? Will you take these next 10 days, the Aseret Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of repentance, and will you really do the work and jump in like Nachshon did into the murky and muddy waters of the sea with only a belief and a prayer and with faith that you too will cross into freedom? Kadima, forward. It's a message of hope for each one of us. It's a message that you can do this even when it's hard. That our community of Kol Ami can do this. Kadima, forward. Even when the future is unknown. Because, let's face it, the future is always unknown. Will it be different? Will this year be different? Of course it's going to be different. It's the future. But like the children of Israel who went into the sea together, biyachad, together our community can move into its future. Kol Dima, forward, whatever that future will be. I know, I for one, have faith in God and in each of you that marching forward into a new future, a new you, is the theme of Rosh Hashana, a time of great miracles. And it was true for our ancestors as well. So I want to conclude with this midrash, a story of our rabbis, which teaches us that there were 10 miracles at the parting of the Red Sea. You just thought the parting was the miracle, but the rabbis had 10. The waters of the sea formed a canopy over the heads of the children of Israel. 12 separate lanes opened up, one for each of the 12 tribes. The water between the tribes became transparent as glass, and they actually could see each other as they marched forward. The ground beneath the Israelites' feet was dry and warm, but then when the Egyptians came in, it changed to mire and mud. The walls of the sea changed to jagged stone when the Egyptian entered, and they were bruised terribly. A stream of sweet drinking water flowed alongside the children of Israel to quench their thirst. Different types of fruit and apples and oranges and plums extended from the walls of the sea, and the children of Israel feasted as they walked through the walls of water. The reflection of these miracles was portrayed in the heavens above, which mirrored them to all of the world who were awed by the stupendous might of God. 10 miracles surrounded and sustained the children of Israel according to the rabbis. One challenge of this season of repentance and renewal is to march forward into 5783 with the same courage, resilience, hope, and faith as they did, and to watch the miracles unfold for us as it did for each of them. For the miracles are all around us. The miracles are in each one of us. But if we open our hearts and our minds and our souls, that's when we can grasp them. When we open our ears and our eyes, then we can see them. And that too is one of my 7 sermons, that miracles are actually everywhere, but it is up to us not only to create them, but to see them and recognize them in one another. Kadima, my friends, forward together in the new year ahead. Ken Yehi Ratzon, so may it be God's will.